There I am. Oh my goodness. Barely got everything done tonight. I kind of got a late start and just had a diaper change. I didn't expect to have a diaper change. I thought I could push it until later, and I take care of a 92-year-old woman in the next room, and it takes a lot of time. Husband situated. Doggies still need to be walked, but they're fed and they can wait because I walked them pretty late today. So we're okay for a little while. Sorry, I'm so late. I guess 10 o'clock is not a good time. It's kind of pushing it for me. I just didn't want it to go too late. And I don't want to be falling asleep, And I'm thinking during the day is better for me. So in the future, I'll probably be doing these in the day. Welcome. I don't know if anyone is watching right now. I didn't pull out my... You can see all my controls. Let's see. Let me just pull this out. How do I do that? I forget. Let's see. I have to pull this out. Here it is. There. Okay. All right. Yeah. To put this over here and shrink that. Okay. Yeah, nobody's here, and I know everybody that's going to be watching this is going to be in the replay. I'm still getting started, and nobody graces me with their views and presence. I guess 10 o'clock is a bad time for the people that I know, and everybody just kind of silently tolerates me on Facebook. I have a lot of people I grew up with who have been following me for a while, tolerating me for a while. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, really looking forward to my life beginning, because my life really, SUCKS is S. I guess I don't know if that's something I'd be penalized on here on YouTube, but yeah, my life really sucks, and I don't have a life, and I'm suffering, and I don't have enough money to pay all my bills, and others put me in this position. I know I didn't have to take the bait, but I did, and they knew it was Claire bait, and they made me, get into this situation where I'm in more debt than I've ever been in my life. Can't pay my bills. I'm responsible for a 92-year-old woman. I have to put her ahead of me and my whole life, 24/7. I have to step out, so it's not exactly 24/7, but it is, because when I step out, it's to get her supplies, her food. So, but I'm not here 24/7. She has a little emergency button if there, something happens. Here, let me pull myself out a little bit. I think I can. I've been trying to practice doing all this stuff. Yeah, so it's me. Is that right? Did I get it all? I don't know if that's... I guess that'll do. My name is Claire Elliott. I'm the Zodiac killer's daughter. I always tend to say the Dragon King's daughter, because that's who my father was in the Lotus Sutra. I know, I'm talking Lotus Sutra, and people who don't know about Nichiren Buddhism don't have any idea what the Lotus Sutra is. It is one of the oldest teachings in existence. I mean, it's not the oldest, but it's older than, it's like 2,600 years or something old. I know there's more ancient Hebrew stuff, but Nichiren Buddhism predates Judeo-Christianity. It just got lost, and so 2,600 years ago, it was reintroduced to humanity after Hebrew leaders, did away with it. because it wasn't in the Hebrew language. It was in some other language, not Hebrew, not Aramaic. And so it was done away with. And, you know, God had to bring it back somehow, some way. And God chose Japan. Well, yeah, and that was 750 years ago. The 2,600 yeurs ago, that was Shakyamuni Buddha. Shakyamuni Buddha is the Buddha that everybody thinks of in history. Oh, I hope I'm not showing how messy my house is. It's okay. I guess it's all right, huh? Yeah, well, it doesn't matter anyway. So, 2,600 years ago, the Buddha that everybody thinks of, you know, he came along and tried really hard to help humanity understand the truth and the whole truth. And, you know, he tried taking partial truths and introducing them to different audiences depending upon their ability to understand. And eventually he culminated everything into one teaching, the Lotus Sutra, and stated that the Lotus Sutra was his complete and total teaching, and to throw away all the other partial truths that he taught to prepare people for the whole entire truth. You know, the truth is very profound and difficult for people to understand, especially in this latter day of the law. This is supposed to be the most defiled age, you know, the dark before the dawn. You know, that's why I'm not even noticed, even though the truth I speak is amazing, if you ask me. I mean, I don't know why the YouTube algorithm ignores me and why people don't notice me or ignore me. I know I'm top secret, I'm classified, and that has a lot to do with it. I realize that a lot of my classmates have security clearances, so, you know, they have to keep it cool and pretend, you know, even if they know what I speak is the truth, they can't let on that they know it's the truth, and they have to just pretend they're ignoring me. And, you know, this is very frustrating. It's very frustrating for me to not exist, because I don't exist. This man, let me move my screen here. Where am I? What am I doing here? Okay, how do I do this? Okay, here we go. Here we go. You're seeing the behind the scenes efforts here. It's because our government insists on keeping me classified, top secret, because our government, you know, I was illegally classified as, well, illegally designated as a threat to national security when I was 9 years old. It was like a crime to mislabel me that. And yet our government insists on keeping me top secret and classified, even though it was a crime that I was even mislabeled a threat to national security when I was home alone at age 9. It was a crime. It was illegal. And still our government insists on keeping me top secret, classified. They insist on it. And this prevents me from having a life. It prevents me from having any access to what is my money, and has been my money since birth, since I was a child and grew it with all the projects I worked on, all the songs I co-wrote, all the movies I co-produced, co-wrote, music videos co-produced, films co-produced, you know, worldwide businesses, brands that I founded with my money as a child prodigy. I mean, you know, it's huge. And yet our government insists on, you know, following the guidance of a delusional idiot. I call him the doctor of delusion, who mislabeled me, criminally mislabeled me a threat to national security when I was 9 years old in 1975. Okay, that was the year I met this guy on the screen here. Well, right here, you know this guy, right? I know this is not the picture that you see all the time of Bryan Kohberger, okay? But it's a picture that I think very much resembles his true identity. This is the disguise, okay? I guess you saw my thumbnail. Bryan Kohberger is a disguise. His true identity is this guy. This is my ex-boyfriend. I started going out with him in 1993. You know, we had an on-again, off-again relationship. He kind of was absentee in my life in 1994. And this enabled Ron Goldman to get to know me really well. And, you know, I was really committed to him, but Ron melted my defenses and convinced me to marry him in 1994. And I didn't realize that the pretend wedding ceremony we had on the eve of the murders, it was a Saturday night, like tonight. It was a Saturday night, just like tonight. How about that? I didn't even think about that. It was a little earlier than this. We're after 10 at this point. I think it was, I'm trying to remember, but I believe, you know, we were going to dinner. Okay. He was going to wine and dine me and introduce me to all my friends throughout Los Angeles. All his friends. Did I say his? His friends. He just always had so many friends. I just always admired Ron and how, I guess he was just much more of an extrovert than me. I was more private. Yes, my ex-husband was a real extrovert. I definitely am not the full-blown extrovert. I'm probably a mix. I need to come home and regroup and regenerate, you know, re-energize myself. I can't be out and about in public around people all the time. I just need to come home and recharge. So that's kind of introverted like. But because of the way I was forced to live my life, I've become very extroverted. Unlike my twin, who is very much an introvert. And I think by nature I am an introvert, but because of what happened to me, I was made into a major extrovert in some ways. You know, I long for attention. I just, you know, I get my fill and I go home and recharge. I'm a real homebody, really. I enjoy being at home. Well, anyway, I just very much admired Ron and how, you know, he just had so many people who loved him and adored him. And I don't know, he was like magic. And everybody waited to meet me throughout Los Angeles on the eve of the murders. And he wined and dined me. He borrowed our friend George's fancy sports car and all that. Anyway, and then I woke up the next morning, and it's, you know, it's a long story, but I finally agreed to marry him. You know, I had really reached a certain point the night before, honestly, but I just didn't want to say anything yet. But after that evening, there was no turning back, and I finally agreed to marry him the next morning. But I had to break up with my boyfriend first. I was very devoted to David. David was my dream man. And of course, I had no idea he was a serial killer criminal. I had no idea. I wanted to believe that the reason why he was so hard to get to know was that he was so, he was very pure and very sensitive. And he is. Well, he's not pure. I wouldn't call him pure. He has a purity about him, surprisingly enough. But, you know, I wanted to believe he was this pure man who kept a distance between himself and everyone else because he was so sensitive and pure. You know, that was my idea, the idea I wanted to believe about David. And it was really hard to break through with him. And it was really hard. I mean, he was impossible. And somehow, some way I broke through with him, and we had an actual relationship, which, you know, is really difficult for him. And that relationship lasted, I mean, we were a couple for 5 years. I mean, on and off, you know, we had our breakups and we'd get back together It was on and off. And we did have a long distance relationship towards the end, when I moved up to Northern California after the murders in 1995. But, even after we broke up, we remained in each other's lives as really good friends, roommates. We lived together. He was like my family. I didn't have a family. My real family just threw me in the garbage a long time ago. And he was like my true family at the time. At least I thought he was. I didn't know he was abusing me, ing me all the time with date, RAPEDRUGS. Didn't know. I had no memory. It took me years to remember, but I did remember. My eyes were always wide open. And yeah, I eventually remembered things. I'm sure I don't remember everything, but I certainly remember a lot of things, the key moments to understand what happened to me. But yeah, so I'm kind of going through this because our government insists on allowing, continuing to allow this stupid idiot, delusional idiot. I'm not talking about David, okay, Bryan. I'm talking about somebody else who is the father of Vanessa Shaw, that well-known actress, model y'all know and love. She's also a Nichiren Buddhist, and she was born in 1976, a year after I met her father. He ordered her up, and she's like a new and improved version of me. She's the new and improved me, and she was supposed to replace me because he didn't consider my parents to be proper Buddhists. They weren't ever active in the organization. The two parents I grew up with, that were in my household, or I was in their household, whatever. He didn't consider them to be proper Buddhists, but both my parents were fortune babies, and their parents were fortune babies too. At least one of my father's. Well, my father's mother, my grandma. The Queen's older sister, Grandma Elliott Willis. She wasn't. She chanted since she was a young child. She was introduced to Buddhism by her father, King George VI. He came to America and taught her to chant. My grandma Flanagan, on my mother's side, and she is my genetic mother. Actually, I know that sounds very odd and strange, but yeah, I'm in a special lineage, and there's a lot of genetic engineering, and this is top secret technology that's been around for a very long time. It's just top secret, okay? And that's why we're just starting to hear about it now in 2023, and it's supposed to be brand new technology now, but it's been around a long time. Anyway, Grandma Flanagan, I grew up with her as my grandma, even though she's my genetic mother. Her adoptive daughter, I grew up with, gave birth to me, and I was the only triplet. I'm the firstborn of triplets. I have an identical twin sister who was the secondborn, and my mother, I was the only normal, healthy one because my mother allowed herself to be injected with heroin by doctors who came to our house every Freaky Friday. And and she also drank gin. So my twin did not turn out healthy or normal, and our triplet brother didn't either. And so my mother only kept me. I was not the largest baby, my twin was, but I was the only healthy, normal one. I was petite, and my twin was bigger. Our triplet brother was very, very small. They didn't know if he was going to make it, but he did, and I ended up marrying him without realizing it. Well, it was rigged. We got married in 1985 before we knew we were triplets. Okay, he didn't grow up in my family or anything. We are divorced, but anyway, and I'm remarried to Dean. Okay, and I married Dean in 2014. We're going on September 5th. We're going on 9. We'll be married 9 years. I know I'm giving you a lot of information, just trying to like help everyone understand the situation here. All right, so our government insists on keeping me top secret, even though it was a crime to classify me in the first place. You know, when you're mislabeled, in my case, a threat to national security when you're 9 years old, the government classifies you as top secret. Somehow, you know, if anyone finds out about me, it's a threat to national security or something. I really don't understand. It was a crime. And as a result, I don't exist. Okay, I'm looking in the camera right now. You're hearing my words. You're seeing my face, and I don't exist. And because I don't exist, I don't have any access to money that is in only my name, Claire Elizabeth Elliott. No, but okay, that money doesn't exist for me because I don't exist, apparently. So because I don't exist, my money doesn't exist. But when it comes to other people, my money magically comes back into existence, and they're allowed to just help themselves. Like I'm dead. Like I have passed away and have DIED. I don't know if that's something the algorithm will penalize me for if I say that word. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal, right? You know, it's like they for me. I guess they treat me like I'm dead, right? And that all my heirs are like thousands of people worldwide that are genetically related to me. People most of whom I have never met in my life, never have heard about. They get payouts on my money. But I don't get a penny. I sit here. I'm not surviving in poverty anymore. I mean, it feels like I am, because I don't have enough money to pay all my bills. You know, with Elizabeth, I take care of a 92-year-old woman, like I said earlier, and she's in the next room. You know, she doesn't have any money anymore. She ran out of money. She gave all her money to her granddaughter, and other people also defrauded her of some money, you know. Well, you could say her granddaughter defrauded her as well, because she doesn't have enough money to take care of herself. I mean, you know, when you take care of somebody 24/7, I mean, if you do, $10 an hour is $240 a day, and you know, multiply that times 7, and you know, that's a lot of money. And she doesn't have anywhere near that money every month to pay me. I just have to take the leftovers, what's left over, and she's only paid me up through September of 2021. Okay, just to give you an idea. I'm her guardian and conservator. She can't pay me the fees that one pays there. You know, her accounts can't pay me the percentage that goes in, of the money that goes in and out of her accounts every year. She can't pay me as her conservator. As her guardian, I can't get paid any of my expenses that I have, you know, being her guardian, especially when she's in a nursing home and I have to go see her and, you know, use up my gas and my time. Well, I don't get paid. You don't get paid as a guardian. You just get your expenses are covered, and your gas, your mileage, you know. Yeah, so, you know, I just get by, and, you know, can't pay all my bills. I have 5 animals inside the house. I take care of 2 stray cats outside. That's 7 animals. Don't ask me how that happened. I didn't plan on having 7 animals that I'm responsible for. You know, yeah, my husband, his mental health has really deteriorated because his family has been at war with, I should say, us, because he married somebody. His mother didn't want him to get married, and he did. He got married to me, and she's been trying to get us to get a divorce for a long time, and so has his twin brother, and it's been really, really difficult for these 9 years. Well, it's been 10 years. I've been in, I met him 10 years ago in September, and we were friends for a year before we got married, and we've gotten married 10 times. I know that's more than what this video was supposed to be about, but it's kind of background that I want you to have so you understand what's going on here. So, David, Bryan Kohberger is David's disguise. There was a Bryan Kohberger, and I wasn't there to witness this. Don't get me wrong. This is just what I believe. It's my take on the situation. And I'm telepathic. I feel like David tells me this stuff, and that's how I know it. Sometimes I just don't know how I know what I know. He knows I'm telepathic. He chants, and I believe he's urging me to tell his story because, he can't. And it's classified. He can't, even if he were free and he decided he wanted to talk, he couldn't. He's bound by our government's classified laws, dealing with classified information, because he has a security clearance and he can't speak freely. He's a CIA operative. He's a hitman for the CIA. Like my father, who was the Zodiac killer. So David, I really feel like David is trying to tell his story through me. I really do believe that. I just know what I need to say right now. Okay, so I just really felt like this particular picture of Bryan, really, this is the picture of Bryan I think that most resembles David. Wouldn't you say? This is like the angle of it. Somehow his hair looks lighter than usual. It's just like the angle really, really resembles David more than any other photo of Bryan that I've come across. I had a hard time finding this too. It's been a while since I've seen it. I thought I had downloaded it, but I couldn't find it, and I finally found it. I guess it was on Reddit. Thank goodness for Reddit. Yeah, so I'll be making some kind of thumbnail using this photo now, because this one's really shows the resemblance, I think. So David did away with Bryan at a certain point. Like CIA, there's a lot of corruption. It's like a bunch of devils, the CIA. I know there are good angels mixed in there. There are undercover people who are double agents who are exposing the truth to reform the CIA. But the majority of people in the CIA are criminals, and they do really bad things. All those conspiracy theories are really true. They're a bunch of pedophiles. They are. There's culture. I'm the victim of it since I was born. Even when I was in utero, my mother was, abused. Her body was abused while we were in utero. And I said the word abused, didn't I? Hopefully I won't be penalized too much. It's really bad, and this is like considered legal. They have their own law. It's like CIA law, and it's they think it has more weight than American law. They believe women have no rights and that we're slaves. They believe in it's like old world law, and they strip women of their rights and their dignity. They think women belong to men. These are men in our society who operate in our government, in our society, in leadership positions, and pretend everything that is normal information, and that they are somehow more important than the rest of us. It's really disgusting. It's a disgusting culture that needs to be wiped away from the earth. It is like Satan's culture, literally. And they worship Satan, I think. A lot of them, it's a disgusting part of our government. And it permeates all parts of our government and all parts of our society. If you have any kind of success in your career, you've been approached. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody who's in the CIA and reports to the CIA and gets paid by the CIA is a bad person. I know there are a lot of good people that are just trapped in this network, like a net, being trapped in a net, and you can't get out. I understand. And I need to break this net open and expose the truth for all, for the sake of humanity, for the sake of world peace. It needs to be, this is not, this is the opposite of world peace. This is the opposite of the truth. It is like a disease. It is like a virus. It's like COVID-19. It's like cancer, that needs to be wiped out for the sake of humanity, for the sake of the truth. I didn't really anticipate getting into all this. I never do. It's like, this is a live stream. This is my live stream. Oops, I'm just, I guess you can't really see me. This is my live stream. It really literally is. I never know what I'm going to say. I have some ideas of what I want to talk about, and I will get to all those points, but I never know what's going to flow through me. This really is my live stream. All right. So yeah, I guess maybe David or others wanted me to speak about this. The CIA steals my money, wants to continue stealing my money, and would like to keep me out of existence for the rest of my life, so they can continue to get payouts on my money. I mean, it's like you have a big bank account. Let's say, look at your bank account today. Imagine the bank not allowing you to see your bank account. And, you can't see the money, you can't even see your bank account. It's not even there. Just imagine that, because that's the way it is for me. I can't even see my own bank account. Don't even know how much is in my bank account. I have a bill, I can't pay it because that money does not exist. Because my bank account doesn't exist for me. But for others, for anyone who has some kind of claim to, who's related to me in any way, shape, or form, I mean, whether they're like the 100th cousin removed, I don't know, people that are so distantly related to me, doesn't matter. You get a payout. But Claire, me, I don't even get a penny. I mean, this is the United States of America. How could that happen in the United States of America? All these devils, all these ridiculous, delusional idiots, they live with all the privileges of being Americans. They live in this country that gives them so many privileges, and they take all the privileges and then they defile the law and twist it and distort it to suit their own needs, because CIA law supersedes American law, right? Because American law, I don't know. I don't understand it. Okay, American law is the law of this land. And all these stupid, delusional, idiot clowns benefit from the law of this land. And then they go and then they circumvent it and distort it and twist it for their own purposes. And then they don't, the law doesn't work for me, but it works for them. And then they're allowed to break it and distort it and twist it for their own purposes, So it doesn't work for me. My nickname is America. I I'm supposed to be queen, and we got this Trump idiot running around thinking he's king just because he's one of my many, many genetic fathers. He's not. I mean, well, he is, but he's just one of many, and he was not born in the lineage. Okay, it's a lineage, and it's actually a female lineage. It's not a male lineage. Okay, it's a female lineage, and yeah, he wasn't born. He was born in a totally different family. Yes, they're related to us, but they aren't the House of Windsor in America. Okay, America is the center. Is the House of Windsor. I'm the House of Windsor, okay? And he ain't in my house, okay? He visited, but I didn't grow up with him. My grandma, who was supposed to be his genetic mother, she never met him in her life, Anyway, it's just disgusting what is going on, and I'm powerless to do anything about it. All I can do is just talk into a camera and hope somebody someday watches a replay and does something and does their job. And I mean, how could this be? How could it be like this? Because our government operates this way, David continues, he's in custody now. Thank the Lord Almighty. Moscow PD, what would we do without them? He has been in custody since December 30th, 2022. Got him just at the end of 2022. Amazing. Do you understand how many people this one man has killed and tortured? And do you understand? I mean, he has killed more people than any other serial killer. Even my father, the Zodiac killer, I do not believe he killed as many people as David has. I call him the real OJ. He's the real Bryan. He started his career out as the copycat Zodiac killer in San Francisco in, I think the early 70s, when he was I don't know, he went to college. He grew up in Pennsylvania. Yes, he did. Same state as Bryan is from. And he first went to the University of San Francisco, I guess when he was 18 years old. So, I mean, he didn't start. I mean, I keep thinking early 20s. No, he was in his late teens when he started his career as the Zodiac killer, the Zodiac copycat killer. Is that what he was referred to as? He went to the School of San Francisco in the early 70s. He was born in 1954, so he was 20 years old in 1974. So he was 20. So he would have been 18 in 72 or something, right? February. I don't know if he turned 18 his senior year of high school. Probably, right? So he probably began his freshman year in the fall of 72. And I don't know. I haven't researched it to really know what took place at that time or when the copycat Zodiac killer started. But that was him. And he got really, really depressed. His family happened to move to Los Angeles during that time, and he couldn't stay in San Francisco. He rejoined his family. His mother and I guess at the time, two of his brothers were in LA. They had relocated to LA, and he joined them in Los Angeles, and that's when he started chanting. I guess somebody, they call it shakabuku, introduced him to chanting, and he ended up at my house in Old Greenwich, Connecticut in the summer of 1975. I had seen him in the paper, the Buddhist paper, World Tribune, and I knew him the second I saw him. He was just very beautiful to me, of course, but there was just something in his eyes. I just knew him, and I felt for him, and I became quite, as an 8-year-old girl, I became very obsessed with him. And then he ended up at my house. I guess I was 9 because he only started chanting that year, and 1975. He wasn't in the paper before then, so I was 9, and at that point, and then he was at my house, and he was the only person who refused to RAPE me. He went upstairs and got with my mother instead of RAPING me. And that really, really impressed me. I mean, yeah, they had me on DRUGS, SEX, DRUGS, ecstasy, equivalent of that. And, of course, in that state, I was very disappointed that he was the one. I mean, I couldn't believe he was at my house, after seeing him in the paper. And yeah, in that state of mind, that DRUG puts you in. Yeah, I so much wanted him to be with me, but he said, no, she's a child. And there was a different part of me who, witnessed this and was highly impressed. And I never forgot that as long as I lived. And I mean, a part of me never forgot it. I did consciously until I ended up in LA chanting for the first time as an adult, since, the first time since childhood as an adult. I did not yet remember that I had chanted as a child, that I was born into this practice in 1965. I didn't yet remember. And I had just started chanting as an adult, and there he was at the Santa Monica Community Center. And then he saw me and he did a double take. I mean, it was instantaneous, the connection. I mean, of course, he probably recognized me, perhaps. I mean, I was an adult by then, but I think he might have recognized me. I didn't consciously recognize him, but I was floored when I saw him. And, it was a very deep bond that we share, and still share, even if I know the truth now and my eyes are wide open. We still have a deep bond. The Lotus Sutra is the only teaching in existence that teaches that even devils can become enlightened. And, I'm in the Lotus Sutra. The star is the Dragon King's daughter. That would be me. In modern terms, that would be known as the Zodiac killer's daughter. My father played that role. He chanted. He chanted since he was a fortune baby, And it was secret, though. It was always a secret, He didn't want anyone to know. His mother, he didn't even know his mother chanted secretly. Okay, that's how much secrecy is in my family. But he knew his father did. He got introduced to Buddhism over in Japan during World War II as a photographer with the Air Corps in the Army, which is now the Air Force. Yeah, and he introduced, or tried to introduce, Mr. Elliot, who he convinced to marry the Mrs. Elliot we all know and love in the SGI. They were blood brothers. They were introduced, and my grandpa was the Mr. Elliot who wanted to chant and couldn't stop chanting, and but Mr. Elliot didn't, his blood brother didn't want to chant, so my grandpa convinced him to marry Mrs. Elliot, and convinced him that she would be his great fortune if he did. If he couldn't chant himself, to have a wife who did chant was great fortune indeed. And little did he know, his own wife secretly chanted. My grandma, Elliot Willis, kept that a secret till her grave. To her grave, she kept it a secret. She promised to keep it a secret, and she really did. My whole family was all about secrets. So I am the Dragon King's daughter, otherwise known as the Zodiac Killer's daughter. And who is David? None other than Devadatta. That is the devil who takes center stage in the Lotus Sutra. And Devadatta and the Dragon King's daughter, or they're like two opposites, an example of enlightenment and an example of delusion. That's what a devil is, a delusional idiot. And like the idiot who mislabeled me a threat to national security in 1975 when I was 9 years old. Delusional idiot. I call him the doctor of delusion because he wasn't a doctor when I knew him in 1975. He had just barely even gotten, I don't even think he had just barely finished his bachelor's degree in psychology. He was not yet anywhere near any kind of doctor that he claims to be now. I mean, I know he finished his schooling, but he's a total fraud. Okay, so I know I'm going into a lot of topics here, but I want you to understand the whole story so you can understand why David did this, so you can understand how he did this, because I have some interesting tidbits to share. It's already an hour. We're going on an hour here. Oh my gosh. I certainly didn't plan on getting into all these details, but it's the way it's gone. And let me just... All right. Let's get down to work. Okay. So, Devadatta. The Lotus Sutra, you can pick it up anywhere, and you can go to sgi.org or sgi-usa.org, and you can find the writings of Nichiren Daishonin, the Dictionary of Nichiren Buddhism. I don't think that's the name of it, but it's you can there's also there are some other writings, but actually I don't think the Lotus Sutra is in there. It's just the writings of Nichiren Daishonin and like a dictionary and some other writings of Nikko, which was his successor. Nichiren Buddhist writings, you can see them all for free. It's a digital version, and if you want to buy the books, they have a bookstore, and the Lotus Sutra is on sale there. And the version that is translated by Burton Watson, I believe that's his correct name, Burton Watson, yeah. That is the version you want. All right, so the Dragon King's daughter is the first person in the Lotus Sutra in the ceremony in the air to achieve enlightenment. She, nobody expects very much of her. First of all, she's a girl, she's a child, and she's a dragon, right? She's not human. She's, all of these kinds of people, children, females, and dragons are not supposed to become, they aren't supposed to have the ability to become enlightened in the old world. At least that was their understanding in the old world. And, there's all these very learned men in the assembly who think they're very advanced, and they're really, in Nichiren Buddhism, there are 10 worlds, and these men are very trapped in the worlds of learning and realization. It's learning, realization, and then it's Bodhisattvahood, right? And then it's Buddhahood. And I believe those are, those are the highest worlds. Those are the top four. And I don't believe that I missed any. I might have, forgive me if I have. I think you get the gist of it. There is no Buddhahood without Bodhisattvahood. That's why, there is the dragon. They call her the Dragon Girl, the Dragon King's daughter. But Jogyo is the name of the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. And Bodhisattva, superior practices, is the translation in the Lotus Sutra. And that is the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth. They're the toughest of the tough. They're the champions. Ross and I wrote a song, we are the champions, we wrote a lot of songs, and that was one of our greatest ones. And that's what the Bodhisattvas of the earth are. We're champions of the world. We're the toughest of the tough, and we come out of the earth. We don't come out of the sky flying like angels. We come out, we're dirty in the dirt. We come out of the dirtiest swamps, like the lotus blossom, which represents enlightenment and nature in Buddhism. By the way, my husband's walking through. Dean, Dennis took the car.
Good.
Okay. The Dragon Girl, the Dragon King's daughter, she is actually the leader of the Bodhisattvas of the earth, Jogyo. Bodhisattva superior practices. And that's me. Me. And her, as a contrast, the Lotus Sutra, they have chapters a chapter devoted to Devadatta, who is a nasty, nasty devil, as the opposite of the Dragon Girl. And that's David. Okay, and here we are. In 2023, we've come together to personify, to bring the Lotus Sutra was told about us. I mean, it's not like we're just bringing it to life. Okay, we got to find some actors to play these roles. Okay, Claire, you want to play that role? Okay, David, you want to play that role? No. When Shakyamuni Buddha, who is the Buddha everybody thinks of in history, who lived some 2,600 years ago, when he expounded the teaching of the Lotus Sutra, he was telling the story of Claire and David, and there's Bodhisattva, never disparaging. And I believe my husband, Dean, he's the most like Bodhisattva, never disparaging. There's a whole chapter devoted to you as well.
Oh, U.S. Navy SEAL.
I know, he likes to think he's some Navy SEAL. Yeah, he's tough. Bodhisattva, never disparaging. He's tougher than you think. I mean, he everybody made fun of him through, sticks and, what is it called? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's Bodhisattva, never disparaging. And that's you, Dean. You just, you constantly bow down to, Dean's family. He was born into a family of monsters. I mean, they're not as vicious as the monsters that were my family, but they're pretty nasty, Dean. And Dean, he has responded differently than me to his family. I mean, I had to get out while I was, to stay alive.
Yeah, I'm like a pilot.
But
I keep my plane on course all the time.
Dean insists on bowing down to his family's Buddha nature. He just can't help himself. He goes back again and again, bowing down to their Buddha nature. That is bodhisattva, never disparaging, if there ever was a person who personified it. And I believe Shakyamuni Buddha was talking about Dean. Sorry. Look, David came before you in history, and I guess it's in my brain. It's wired into my brain. I apologize for defiling your name.
He wasted 10 years ago.
Dean is bodhisattva, never disparaging. Dean. David is Devanata. That's pretty clear. Look at that face. Come on. The devil would have a face just like that. But yes, Dean. Oh, I almost called you David again. I'm sorry. It's like brain. It's wired into my brain. Okay, he was the one that came first in history.
He brainwashed you for 10 years now.
Yeah. The thing about Nichiren Buddhism, another thing about Nichiren Buddhism is that cause and effect are simultaneous. This is the secret. In our world we think, okay, this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and then the effect happened, right? The cause, and then blah, 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 and then the effect, right? No. In Nichiren Buddhism, it's simultaneous. And if you study metaphysics, this has been proven scientifically that cause and effect are simultaneous. Buddhism has been teaching this for millennia, and just now, metaphysics is finally catching up and proving it, right? What this means is that in reality, there really is no time. We think in a linear way. In Nichiren Buddhism, it's vertical. Everything's right now. Shakyamuni Buddha expounding the Lotus Sutra 2,600 or so years ago was expounding it as it was happening right now. Okay, there is no time. And heaven, or in Vega, whatever you want to call it, there is no time. In the sun, everything revolves around the sun. So there's no sun. There's no time in the sun. You understand?
Yes, there also no time in hell either.
Hell is not a place like heaven. Heaven is a location. Hell is a state of mind. Dean, you and I have survived hell here on earth, okay? Yeah, if there is a location, it's here on earth right now. But on earth as it is in heaven. That was the promise. All these devils have been dominating for a while now, but not forever. The promise was on earth as it is in heaven. And that is a promise I plan to keep. It's not, these devils, this is temporary. It seems like an eternity for us. I just don't know when I'm going to be able to have a life. I'm just so fed up with this, this whole situation. I just don't know what anyone expects me to do. I really don't. And I'm just really fed up with our government who perpetuates a crime. To perpetuate a crime committed against a 9-year-old in 1975, excuse me. You wonder why the world is in the state it's in, because look at the cause our government makes. Look at the cause the SGI makes. The SGI ignores me as well, pretends I don't exist.
And at one point in the future, all this is going to blow up like a huge bomb, and all the ones that did you wrong will be.
Well, the universe acts like a mirror. It's like, that's what cause and effect is. It's like, okay, you make a cause, and the reason it's simultaneous is because it's like you're putting something there, and immediately the reflection is reflected right back. That's cause and effect. It's a mirror. The universe acts as a mirror and gives you back what you put out. Gives you right back, what you put out. And I just don't understand why I get back such atrocity when all I do is like give, 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 give. When will I receive what I put out? I just don't understand that about what's happening to me. I mean, I know that I'm taking responsibility for humanity and I'm getting all this stuff back. You know, I had many alternate personas and they didn't always do good stuff. And I have to pay. They don't have to pay. Claire always has to pay. And I'm just so tired of it. I mean, when am I going to get a break? Everybody else gets a break and I don't. And I just don't understand, you know, what's going on here, you know, like why I'm looking in the mirror and I'm getting such atrocity thrown back at me. I really don't understand that. Anyway, but it's because of all these many causes that we have the effect of this man on my screen committing the horrible act that he did on November 13th, 2022. I mean, he's in custody now. I mean, thank the Lord Almighty for the Moscow PD. Thank you for bringing him into custody. And I thank the judicial system in Moscow for not allowing him any bail because he left the state. I mean, it's just so beautiful the way it all worked out. And I thank all of you sincerely because David cannot be released into society ever again. He cannot. He will kill again. And he will get away with it the next time. I mean, you know, I do believe this is what he did in Moscow was his way of turning himself in. I haven't had a lot of interactions with David over the years since I removed him from my life in 2003, but he had a major stroke in June of 2009 that made me give him another chance, you know, thinking maybe he was a new man. You know, when people go through have a major stroke, they, you know, their brain changes. And I thought maybe he's a new man. And I gave him another shot. And, you know, I did see him that summer of it was August of 2009. After my infamous press conference. I did see him then. I guess I saw him. You know, I thought I saw him only one time, but I think did I see him again? I don't think I did. No, I only saw him that one time. I thought I had seen him another time. I thought I had. I don't know. I might have. I don't believe that I saw him more than once, but it seems like I saw him more than once that summer, and I haven't seen him again since that summer. We remained in touch by phone, and he got. I guess he got upset that I had a boyfriend. I got a boyfriend at a certain point, and he was playing these games, and I just realized he was the same man he always was, and we weren't keeping in touch that much, and we had a really good conversation, and that's when I ended up getting married to Dean, and it was I last spoke with David before I got married in August of 2014, and I didn't know I was going to get married like 2 weeks later. It just happened, and then I lost his number. I switched phones, and I never put his number back in my new phone, and we lost touch for years, and until I started taking care of Elizabeth and one day realized, oh my gosh, you have the exact same birthday as David's mother, who I know is your long lost twin. And And I was moved to reach out to his mother, Yvonne. It was in time for their 90th birthday, and I guess it was in 2021. They were born in 1931. They were turning 90 on February 22nd, and and that's how I reconnected with the family and eventually David. And we spoke by text message only. We've only texted a couple of times since then, and the last time I texted with David was over the summer of 2022. In August, I think it was the last time. If I'm not mistaken, I might be off. I know we started texting in July, but I told him a message. My father died. I found out my father died a couple years before I found out. I bumped into his online obituary, and then his mother died right after that. And and I was texting David about that. It was very sad the way his mother died, and I was sad about it too, because she never got to meet Elizabeth, and Elizabeth never got to meet her, and it was kind of sad. And of course she was like a mother to me at one time, Yvonne, and then his niece died in September. And she was the exact same age I was when I used to babysit for her. That was the age she died. And she died on 9/4, like 1994, that the year of the murders. And his mother died on our exact anniversary, Memorial Day. That's when, back in 1993. And it was just, there were words to exchange, and I texted him a few messages, and I kind of feel like I was asking him to turn himself into the FBI, and I feel like he made a decision in August to do this, and that is what I understand. That was when he started driving by the King Road house, right? Started stalking that house. And I believe that this was, he was intentionally doing this. One thing about how he'd drive by the house, and I want to explain something. Back when David was sleeping on my couch in Glendale in 2000, I was going out. I had gone leaders in the SGI had pressured a guy I was going out with to break up with me. It was early 2000. And it was devastating for me. And I didn't know why. I didn't know that I knew him from the past. It's a very long story. I won't get into it right now. And I didn't understand why it was so emotionally painful for me. And it was because I knew him from my past. I hadn't yet remembered him, but I was in the process of remembering him. He definitely remembered me. But he was very vulnerable to, he was very committed to the SGI and to leadership in the SGI, and very vulnerable to their influence. And he was pressured to break up with me, and it was just devastating for me. And there was a woman who would always be in his company, who was just a platonic, well, maybe they weren't really platonic, I don't know. It was not a woman he was seriously interested in, but she was kind of a stalker, and she stalked him, and I think he really got off on it. She was like his groupie. And because she was always with him, sometimes, I would talk with her, and she would give me tips on how to track people down, and she gave me tips on how to stalk people. Okay, I'm not a stalker by nature, but I took a lot of her advice, and I don't know, it rubbed off on me. And I remember driving by, When David was sleeping on my couch, I would go out and I would drive by this guy's house all the time. He had a so-called platonic friend who was his type, and it's such a long story. And they would, they would pretend to get together for study purposes. They were both members of the SGI. And I wasn't invited, and nobody else was invited. And, clearly there was a lot more going on. And I would drive by her house. She lived in Glendale as well. And, and I'd like circle around and I'd go by it again. I would make my rounds, passes, I guess that's what they call it in Moscow. And I would tell David about this. I would just be driving. It used to be David's car. It was a white Mazda. It was kind of like a sporty model, like an Elantra. That's kind of David's style of car. I'm pretty sure it was an Elantra that he had, and that's why the police came forward with a different year, because that was the year David had. He bought it. I remember when he bought it, and but I would make several passes, to see how late he would stay at her house into the night. I don't know, and it was devastating for me at the time, and I would tell David all about it, and he knew I was just making passes by their house, and this is what he was doing in Moscow. I really do believe he was mimicking me at that time when he was sleeping on my couch, and I was driving by my ex-boyfriend's, the house of the woman where my ex-boyfriend was having study meetings, closed study meetings. In the SGI, they have leaders meetings, and that are not really leaders meetings. This is the way the SGI has operated over many years. I really hope they're not operating that way anymore. But for years, they'd have leaders meetings, and that would be code for, SEX meetings, group SEX meetings, leaders only, people who pass the test of, who are selected to be leaders, only they are allowed. It's kind of like a priesthood. They pride themselves on not being priests, and yet they create their own priesthood, which is leadership, and which is separate from the membership. And they convince themselves that they serve the membership. And then they have their little group SEX, and they think that they're special and superior to the general membership. That's a priesthood. Okay, and I tried to get through to my ex-boyfriend, who, he really is my ex-fiance. Why are you grunting over there?
Just drop it.
What? You don't want to hear it.
No.
I tried to get through.
You wasted more and more and more and more of your time.
I know it was. I know it.
That's the worst demon there is in the world.
Yeah.
Wasting so much time.
I know. It was so much of my blood, sweat, and tears. So much of my youth was wasted on
Useless stuff.
Useless people, really. Yeah, it's sad. Well, at least I have you now. Okay? They all led me to you. You should be grateful to them, It was because of the way they treated me that I'm now with you. Okay? They led me to you. So you should be thanking them. But anyway, yeah, I tried to get through to this ex-boyfriend so he could understand and comprehend that the SGI was mimicking, was like it was the exact reflection of what was happening in Nichiren Shoshu, and he couldn't see it. He just refused to see it. He was just blind, and he still is blind. I'm pretty sure. He can't see what's right in front of him. He doesn't want to, because that means he's totally ridiculous and wrong and really wrong and has been really wrong for a long time. Yeah, and he can't be wrong, so he has to keep going with the program and label Claire whatever he does. Well, anyway, yeah, because of the behavior of this organization, I don't know if you understand, when you chant, you have a big responsibility. And when you slander someone who has the mission in life that I do,
It backfires.
There's the effect of what we see in the world today. Okay, I mean, I don't think we would call this a very pleasant world to live in right now. I mean, I think tomorrow is supposed to be like the hottest day on record in a lot of places. There's probably people traveling to Death Valley in California to say they were there when it broke all records in our country, 130 degrees, right? That might be the highest temperature on record in our country. I don't think it would be in the world, but definitely in our country. Yeah, I mean, we're on fire. This is hell, baby. This is the what is it called? The pond, the lake of fire. What? I don't know. This is it. I mean,
Claire.
This is if hell is a place, it would be right here, right now.
Many a day in my warehouse in the summertime, it was 130 fucking degrees.
Yeah.
Every day.
All right. So yeah, you're used to those hot temperatures, but anyway. So I'm going into all of this because it's because of all of these causes by so many people that we have this situation where innocent people have been killed. David's been in, his career has spanned about 50 years at this point. Thank goodness Moscow PD put an end to that, and he cannot be allowed to ever be released again. And I know everybody wants him to die, and he, if anyone deserves to die, it would be him. He's guilty. I know he is. But I do, because I personally know him and have been through so much with David, I do feel for him. And I see that, especially when he was first taken into custody, I see how scared he was. And I think that he's been able to process it a lot more by now. And I do see a confidence, and I see a seriousness of purpose to him, and this is no joke to him. He's taking this very seriously, and yeah, he's still fighting for his life. He's trying to get off on a technicality, and we can't let that happen.
Where he killed the boy.
What? Oh, Brian, I did mention. Yeah, I did mention that. He took over Bryan Kohberger's identity, and so when he really says he will be fully exonerated, when Bryan says that, it's true. Bryan will be fully exonerated. It's not Bryan, it's David. Okay, so I did mention. I have a few points I want to mention before we wrap up tonight, and I mean, oh my gosh, yeah, by the time we'll be wrapping up, it'll probably be 2 hours. I can't believe it. Okay, so another thing I want to point out, and it just dawned on me. I think it was today. Linda Lane. First of all, I do believe he selected the address because, I was born Queen. It was on King Road. 1122, that's the date when JFK was assassinated. That's one of my genetic fathers, okay? And Dean, I'm sure he knows, Dean is really obsessed with that date in history. And
he did that die until January of 1967.
But, you know, 1122. I do believe too that that manifesto, Elliot Rogers, of course, his name would be like my last name. I'm Claire Elliott, and Elliot Rogers, 1T though. Yeah, I there is a video, and I guess I'll make it a different video. I was going to include it here. I was going to go through the manifesto, and there is a video that I guess he recorded. I haven't seen it yet, and I was going to play it here, but that will be a different video. Cuz I didn't realize I was going to get into all that I have in this video. And there's just a couple more points that I want to point out before we go. So Linda Lane, you know, like I said, he selected Queen. It actually is on Queen, but I guess they call it the King Road house. I don't know. I guess King Road is to the left of the residence, but the address is on Queen Road, which is really strange. I don't know how that happened, but usually where the address is the street it's on. But I guess it was a little different this time over there. But Linda Lane, he did not have to drive over there. And I do believe all that security footage that we see, I believe it's for real. And it really does match up with I forget what they call it, you know, the timeline that the police have put out, BCA, I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about. The timeline that was released, you know, it matches up, and I see him turning around, doing the 3-point turn. That is David. I've seen him do that before, and it really reminds me of. I mean, I used to just go around the block, you know, to see how late my ex-boyfriend stayed at this other woman's house having his little study meeting that no one was allowed to attend. It was a private study meeting. Yeah, I'd just go around the block again and again, and I'd blast my radio, and it was soothing for me somehow. And I see him going around and around, just in a very similar fashion. But I've been in the car with him when he has turned around like that, you know, done the 3-point turn. That's what he does. That's very much his style of driving. It's really strange. And I guess I feel like he was trying to make a spectacle of himself that evening, because it wasn't evening anymore. It was the middle of the night. It was early in the early morning hours, wasn't it? And, you know, as I watch and hear what he did, I think, why didn't he just park his car and sit in it and watch the house? Why was he driving around? Just park somewhere and sit in your car. I mean, who's going to see you there? And who's going to care if they do? I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, I think he made more of a spectacle of himself driving around the way he did than he ever would have had he just sat in his car the whole time. That's why I really, this was his way of turning himself in. I really do believe so. But Linda Lane, I do believe he drove over there on purpose. I mean, he didn't really have to, right? But he's like trying to make a spectacle of himself. And he knows there are he knows there are cameras everywhere nowadays. He knows this. And he's probably scouted them out and knew there was a camera right there that would see him, sort of, you know, just enough to, you know, and that's why he backed up so you could see him on camera a little better than him just driving by, right? You can see it enough to see that it looks like the white Elantra. It does. I don't care what anyone says. That looks like a white Elantra to me. And it doesn't have a sunroof. I don't think. I didn't see any. That other video with the dumpster, I don't know what the hell that is. I don't believe that's at all connected. But Linda Lane, he I swear he planned that, because we have a mutual, I won't even call her, I was friends with her twin, not really her. She's both of our acquaintance. Linda Jameson of the Psychic Twins. Okay. Linda has always had this intense crush on David. And she swore she was going to marry him one day. And, and then I came along and I married him instead. On paper, anyway. I don't know. It was top secret. I wasn't supposed to remember anything. David knew I would one day. But it was supposed to be a secret. But anyway, yeah. I named the Psychic Twins, okay? I came up with their name. They've never credited me or anything. They didn't want it. Obviously, they didn't want anyone to know. They were never known as psychics. They were. Terry was my young women's division leader, and she and Linda moved all the way from New York to L.A. and Linda somehow finagled into becoming the YWD leader in David's district. David was the men's division leader, district leader. And, that was rigged. She was determined to become his wife. She was obsessed with him. And then I showed up and ruined everything. And I don't think she's ever forgiven me. But it's interesting that, she has all these different takes on, they've done a lot of mediumship readings about Nicole, and they're so sure OJ killed Nicole, and it's so interesting that if they're so psychic, I'm surprised they don't understand that it was David. Well, actually it wasn't David, it was his partner in crime who killed Nicole. And I don't know why Nicole didn't tell her, because it was Linda. Well, it was actually Terry who went out with David's partner in crime who killed Nicole. But it's funny that Linda never picked up and neither did Linda pick up that it was David who brutally murdered my brand new husband, Ron Goldman. So very psychic, the Psychic Twins aren't they? Look, I know when something's really close to you emotionally, it's hard to see clearly. But they're always bragging about being the world's most proven psychics. They used to claim to be the only psychic twins in existence. It's so hilarious, It's like, I'm a twin, I'm a triplet, and my twin is psychic. I mean, all twins are psychic. They communicate in the womb, okay? That's how they get their start with their psychic ability. I mean, anyway. They are so ridiculous, the Psychic Twins.
I know what their damnation is.
What?
They were that psychic. They should have told everybody who worked in those towers on 9/11 and say, keep your ass home on Monday.
Yeah, I think that they should keep track.
And save 4,000 people's lives.
Right. They
couldn't do that.
They say they predicted 9/11. I don't buy it. I'd like to see them keep track of all the things they get wrong. And a lot of things they so-called, that they predict,
Or near misses.
I think the average person could make a good guess at those items and get it right. It's not really psychic ability at all, and it's just showmanship. And when I knew the Psychic Twins, they were the Jameson twins back then, and they were comedians, and they worked odd jobs. They worked temp jobs mostly, and they'd audition for different things. I don't remember. I think whenever I visit their Instagram, I can't get over all the things they claim. I mean, they just keep making things up. I mean, and it makes me wonder, like, how much of what they told me was really true. I mean, I once asked them, like, how they got so many pictures of themselves, and they said, "Oh, we just hired a photographer." They just hired a photographer, took lots of pictures. You know, I mean, that's why they have so many pictures. They weren't in any magazines. They weren't models. All this is just bullshit. I can't even believe all the things they make up. Oh, we started this trend and the B-52s copied us. You know, I mean, sometimes I think they're joking. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if they're joking, or I'm not really sure. They pretend to be the origin of so many trends in the 1980s, and it's just so much the opposite. I mean, they copied Annie Lennox. They copied this person. They were inspired by this person, but now to impress their followers today, they act like they were the originals, and it was those celebrities that copied them. I mean, it's so ridiculous, and I don't know why they have the need to do that. I just don't. And I realize that they probably lied to me. They probably aren't even artists. They probably didn't even design their own costumes. They probably paid somebody to design those costumes. I just don't know. They used to talk about being on Saturday Night Live, but I actually wonder if that's a lie because of all that they make up today, you know. Anyway, the psychic twins. Yes, Linda. She is such a psychic, right? She predicted she was going to marry David. And she doesn't even know he's a serial killer. I mean, that's how psychic she is. And I'm pretty sure David and I used to laugh about her, and, you know, and, you know, I know that's why he drove on Linda Lane. Okay? He wanted me to tell that story. He married me, not Linda. Linda, he never dated Linda. She used to tell the world that she dated David. What a joke. She wanted to date him. They were leaders together only because she inserted herself in his district. He thought it was a coincidence. No, she made that happen. I told him. Okay, Linda, I told him so he'd know the truth. Yeah, so we all chanted at one time. I don't think they chant very much at all anymore. You know, they chanted in some videos, though. I thought it was really kind of cute. I wondered why they didn't talk about Nichiren Buddhists that much. You know, but they claim to be one person and two bodies. I mean, that is totally, like, opposed to everything Nichiren Buddhist, you know. And they were, you know, and Terry was my leader, you know. She was supposed to be my leader. And by the way, they are not my age. I'm the one that was born in 1965. They weren't. They're David's age. David is maybe 1 year older. So they're probably 68. Okay, so they're about 10 years older than me. Okay, I'm 57. They are 68, 67. I don't know. I have to remember what month they were born. I think they claim to be born in 65, but it's actually, I think it's 55. They were born in 55, and they are like 67, 68 years old. David is 69. And this is a picture of David right here on the screen when he was, I guess he was in 1994 when he was 40 years old. And it was right after he buried the murder weapon on the top Mount Whitney. Okay, that's what this picture is. Okay, so Linda Lane, I wanted to mention that. And, okay, and how did David do it without putting his, you know, blood? You know, there would have been, everybody says if he had, I'm talking about Bryan really, but, you know, I call him David because that's his true identity. If, you know, murdering, you know, stabbing all these people, there would have been blood everywhere, right? And how is there not one speck of DNA inside his car or inside his apartment or office? How is that possible? Okay, well, one thing I've heard recently, I had not heard this previously. Bethany, the roommate that was downstairs on the first level, you don't hear about her very often, but apparently the rumor is, now this is not confirmed, but I thought, when I first heard it, I thought it was crazy, but then it was just recently I realized that makes some sense. I've heard she claims that she saw a naked guy by the sliding glass doors. Okay. And that makes sense, okay? Because I know David had this all planned out. Back in the 90s, after the murders in 1994, David once covered the entire interior of his car with plastic, clear plastic. And I remember coming out to the car. He had a white 4Runner in those days, not a white Bronco. And I'm like, what is this? You know, white, you know, clear plastic all over the front of, the passenger and driver's side, the dashboard. Everything was covered in plastic. I'm trying to remember if the back seat was covered with plastic. It might have been. It was like a huge piece of clear plastic. It was pretty thick. It wasn't like flimsy, really thin plastic. It was the kind that was firm and, you know, made that really a loud noise and was stiff, you know, thick plastic. And I think it did overflow into the back, and he may have even covered the back seats with it. Okay. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And he's like, oh, I'm cleaning my car. He intentionally wanted me to see that he, you know, how he covers the interior of a car. At the time, I didn't even think, you know, I didn't realize he was a serial killer, you know, when he was in my life. You know, I didn't know he was showing me how he covers the interior of a car after a crime, you know, to get, you know, when he's getting away, leaving the scene of a crime where he, you know, where there's a lot of blood.
Hey, baby. Come here.
No, leave her here. That's how he did it. Okay? He would have covered his whole car interior with this stiff, thick, see-through plastic. I mean, the steering wheel, the front, I mean, he covers everything. Okay, it's everywhere. And I know he would have had a clean set of clothes put aside. Okay, when I'm thinking, Bethany saw him he took off all his clothes before he left the house, the King Road house. He took off all his clothes, put it in a bag, tied it up, maybe even double bagged it. You know, he has to work really fast, and he's used to doing this. And then he stepped outside where he had, you know, new gloves and fresh shoes and fresh, you know, clothes. And he just, you know, stepped into the shoes, the gloves, pulled on the clothes, and in an instant ran through, you know, with the bag in hand, ran through up in the woods to the car he had parked behind. I forget the name of the road there, you know, that's parked along that wooded area in the back of the King Road house. Ran through there with his bag, put it, you know, everything's covered with plastic. And of course, he didn't have to, like, take off and make all that noise, did he? I mean, if you're leaving the scene of a crime, you want to be cool, right? And this is how I know he was trying to attract attention. This was him turning himself in. He did this intentionally, screeched off like that. He did that intentionally. I mean, who does that? You just murdered 4 people and you're going to screech away and announce it as you take off? Who does that?
I would have parked at the top of the hill, put the car in neutral, let it roll downhill. With no
Exactly.
No engine, nothing. Just roll downhill.
I mean, if he had the presence of mind to kill 4 people in 9 minutes flat, and and leave no DNA in his car, office, or apartment. Come on. He knows not to screech off like that. He did that intentionally. This is him turning himself in. But that's how I think he's trying to demonstrate how he does it. So everyone knows this is how he did it. And he wants me to tell the story. Yeah, so it makes perfect sense that Bethany saw a naked guy. I remember when I first heard that, I'm like, that is really weird. You know, why would she see a naked guy? Like, is that somebody leaving somebody's bed? No, that doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense, and I just thought it was really odd. But it makes perfect sense now that I think about how David operates. Yeah, he would have taken all his clothes off, down to his underwear, naked, put on new clothes, because he knows about DNA, and he's done this so many times. And he knows, he has a system, and and so he took off, and yeah, when he was going that roundabout way back to Pullman, Washington, yeah, he buried whatever it was in that bag. Yeah, the weapon. I don't know what he would have done. He probably would have separated everything. He buried the murder weapon that he used. It was a hunting knife, and his bloody clothes atop Mount Whitney. I'm saying, the murder weapon from 1994 and the bloody clothes. He buried everything on top of Mount Whitney. Yeah. So, that's what he did in this case. He buried everything.
It shows how stupid he is.
Well, he just went.
No. I find a fisherman can go 50 miles off the coast with a fishing boat. And put his stuff in a box. Mm-hmm. Say, get out of 50 miles, toss this over the side, get your $100 bill. No problem. And guess what? It's 2 miles deep. That submarine can't reach it. They can't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. It's not above the ocean. Mm-hmm. It's millions of pounds of water on top of it. It can't move. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But no, he goes into a park and buries it in a park instead of throwing it in.
Well, I don't know, but he buried everything on top Mount Whitney back in July of 94. We went up to Mount Whitney, and that's what he did. And I didn't know what he was doing. Okay, I was still in a state of trauma and denial, and I saw his bloody clothes. He took out the knife and pretended to attack me with it, just for fun. I mean, he had a menacing look on his face. It was horrible. I guess he wanted me to see what it looked like so I could tell you. He becomes like a different person when he goes into that mode. And it wasn't funny. I mean, there was a split second where I really wondered if he was going to hurt me with that knife. I mean, it was in broad daylight. It was in his driveway on 11th Street in Santa Monica. Okay.
Too bad you didn't see this.
I mean, I think it was in his driveway. It might have been on the road on our trip, though. It might have been somewhere on our trip. It's been a lot of years. I know I found the bloody clothes in his driveway, and I believe it was right after I found the bloody clothes that he did that with the knife. And he looked so menacing, and he looked so evil, and it was like a person I didn't know. It was horrible. I could feel the it was like piercing. I don't know. The eyes were piercing. All right. Those were the main points I wanted to mention. Of course, I had thought that I was going to go in a totally different direction. I thought I was going to read the manifesto, because Elliot Rogers has a lot to do with this too. And I know that had a lot to do with November 13th. I've only read a little snippet here and there of the manifesto. I haven't gone through it, and I'd like to read it on a video and go through it and watch his video, Elliot Rogers' video. David, I know, really was inspired by that manifesto and Elliot Rogers. And of course, Elliot is my last name. So of course, that, he would gravitate to somebody named that name. But it was what he said in that manifesto that really, it was like David wrote it. And it was really interesting. And I do believe that, that is the reason. I mean, he was correcting what he perceived to be a wrong. He was teaching I really think, I know a lot of his murders have to do with him teaching women in particular a lesson. Like he doesn't like, when women, in the old days, he used to like meet up with women and, he'd be in a bar and, and he'd pick up a woman, and if they were too, what he perceived as being too easy, he would teach them a lesson, he thought they needed to learn. That's the way David operates. He kills children he thinks are too messed up, have been damaged too much, so he puts them out of their misery. He kind of puts people out of what he perceives their misery. And I do believe that the kids at the King house very much, he kind of wanted to teach them a lesson, and his mindset, I'm not, how do I say it? I'm not justifying anything he's ever done, of course. I'm just explaining his mindset so people can understand. He doesn't like people. He hasn't been allowed to have the life of his dreams. And I guess, too, he saw them living a life, and I guess he perceived them as being really smug in their, he saw the girls maybe partying a little too much and being a little too what he would perceive as promiscuous, things like that. I'm not accusing any of the girls of anything. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm trying to explain how David thinks. And, there was a time when he drugged me with date RAPEDRUGS and confessed everything to me and explained everything to me. And so there's like a part of me that just understands what his thinking process is. Not that I condone it. I just want everyone to understand where he's coming from. And, he's never had, he's not an incel, really. I think, he's never had any problem attracting women wherever he goes. But he has a lot in common with them. He resents young people who have everything that he never had, as a young person. He had so much, though. I don't know. He had such a good life when I was his girlfriend. He had women throwing themselves at him, and he was indulging, cheating on me left and right. I just don't understand why he feels deprived when he had it all. He had it all, and he chose to do what he did. I just don't understand why he's ever felt deprived. He had it all when I knew him, when he was my boyfriend. he had it all. Yeah, he didn't have money. That was the problem. He never had enough money. He never had the wealth, but he had, like, I mean, he was like, he had Nicole Brown. Nicole Brown. I'm not. Anna Nicole Smith. He had her on the side. Okay, he was, you know, I was his girlfriend, and he had Anna Nicole Smith on the side. I mean, what was he lacking? I mean, other than money. Okay, he didn't have the wealth he so much longed for. I don't think any of the kids in the King house had, wealth. I mean, they had the potential to wealth, and they certainly had all their needs covered. I just don't know why he ever felt like his life was less than great. I mean, I know what the acts he committed, the horrible acts he committed, probably destroyed all of it. Yeah, and so he really has himself to hold, he needs to hold himself responsible. And I know he was seriously abused as a child, and that rage.
And blame himself.
That rage, some of it is genetic. He's bipolar. He's bipolar. I do think I don't know if he has to drink cold medicine, cough syrup, whatever it is, cold medicine, to hear voices, but he hears voices. I don't know if he uses drugs to be able to unlock the voices, but he hears voices. He has told me he hears voices, and they tell him to do stuff, which is schizophrenia, which means he's schizoaffective.
Which makes it very dangerous.
Well, not all schizoaffective people are very dangerous, okay? But all the abuse done to him, combined with his mindset, combined with his mental illness, it was a recipe for disaster.
Yep.
And I'm really sad for David, but I am grateful that, I wish he could have turned himself in. I offered to, I in my text messages, I offered to contact the FBI on his behalf. I don't know. I don't remember my words exactly, but I certainly didn't have this in mind. This was not what I had in mind. I truly wanted him to do it the old-fashioned way, to do it the standard traditional way. I know the FBI already knew who he was. They've known who he was since 1994, but because I'm classified, because of our government insisting on perpetuating the crime committed by the delusional idiot who mislabeled me a threat to national security in 1975, the FBI couldn't bring David to justice until the Moscow PD got involved because of this horrible, brutal act of violence he committed in Idaho. All right. Okay, so yeah, we're just under 2 hours now. In 6 minutes, it will be 2 hours. It's after midnight, right? Yeah.
Right.
And I'm done, at least for now. And I'm going to go over the manifesto next time, because the key to what happened in Idaho is that manifesto. I know it. And he wants me to read it. I just haven't been able to read it. I just read a little snippet that explained everything to me. It's like it was written by David himself, really. The little snippet I read, the little paragraph or so that I read of it. But I want to take it all in and really digest it. And I think everyone needs to really understand what David has done here. And I'm very, very sad by all of this. I feel really sad. It's really sad. All right. Just under 2 hours. Well, until next time. Next time will be the manifesto. Until next time. Peace.